All right, Bruce, we're at the top of the hour right here. So if you want to join me up here on stage, I know you got a lot of great content to share. So everybody, thanks for joining us for the TeamRaiser customizations, S tags, custom URLs, and other fun stuff brought to you today by Bruce Bowman. Bruce is backstage, but if you'll look over on the right-hand side, bottom right, there should be a green button there for you to join me on stage.
There we go.
There you go.
Right on. Hey, everybody, welcome today.
All right. So you got your screen share over there to the left?
Yep. All good. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, gotcha. I'm going to drop backstage so I don't crash out the bandwidth.
Got it. Hey, everybody, welcome today. Bruce Bauman here, Susan G. Komen. I'm going to share my, let me share my presentation. Here we go. So this PowerPoint will be available towards the end. I'll have to upload it. It's got some cool tips and tricks. If you have any questions today or any comments, anything we want to look at after I go through my slides, please post those in the chat or in the Q&A. I want this to be a little bit of a dialogue. So I'm hoping that as we move through, we might have some opportunity to have some questions or just discuss some concepts. I am going to talk about some custom URLs first of all. And I'm going to talk about that because that's like a #1 customer service challenge that I have on a regular basis at SGK. Next, we'll be talking about tags, and then we'll have questions. But a little second about me, Bruce Bauman. I'm the senior peer-to-peer engineer at Susan G. Komen. So I have over 20 years of interactive marketing and charitable giving experience. Former Blackbaud partner. I've been using Luminate Online for going up to about 14 years now. I was a former cable television engineer, arts instructor, and DJ MC, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. So I'm excited to be here with you today. I am hoping that we have a good afternoon. I hope you're having a great time at the Dev Days. Got my Dev Days shirt on. So let's dive in. And I am going to show some examples in a moment. So let me make sure that I've got my screen all queued up. So I guess, let me just open I'll just do this in the window. It'll be easier. So first thing we're going to talk about is getting the code and get your code ready. But first, let's chat about the TeamRaiser custom module. Oh boy, dude. And the reason I wanted to talk about custom URLs is because I'm kind of the end of the line support at Susan G. Komen, and we manage at any one point in our event cycle between 30 and 60 TeamRaisers. And a lot of what I like to suggest to my fundraisers and event owners is that they get their participants to create a custom URL. And this is a really cool feature of TeamRaiser, but one that some of us, especially in tech, can be more familiar with, because if it doesn't work right, we're going to have to fix it and figure it out. So guiding the TeamRaiser participants through their custom URL, and so they can create a custom URL for their personal page and their team pages, which, if they structure it right, they can use from year to year or event to event. Now, they are unique, and that can cause some issues. For example, I frequently get the challenge where somebody's like, oh, so-and-so can't make their custom URL. And so we'll go and look back at their last year's page and nope, it's not there. The challenge is either they used it in years back and it didn't get cleared out, or somebody else is using it. And that's going to be a real challenge, because one of the things we always want is from Blackbaud to get a report around the custom URLs. It's possible to get that information. It's just not readily accessible for us as users. So it's important every time you're closing an event that you archive and then release the shortcut URLs. Then you can go back to maybe putting your TeamRaiser in the closed status. That way people can run reports on it. But if you archive and clean the URLs out, people can go ahead and reuse that. Now, one thing we have as part of our DIY, our event managers actually manually go in, and as part of our customer service, and I've got a little screenshot here, they'll show, or they'll look up what your custom URL was from your current event or last year's, and copy and paste that into your new page. That way it's good to go. They check it. That's great customer service. And that way we've gotten our fundraiser off and out of the gate. And so that's just something that I like to strongly suggest to my event owners. So now that we've gone through that, and I'll take questions around this stuff later, and anything around configuring TeamRaiser. Now let's dive into the meat. So one of the things we have at Susan G. Komen, and I want to talk about the structure of TeamRaiser, and this is generally Luminate overall. It's guided by what are called template files. And if you ever have access to these, they have the file extension .tpt. They're also working in concert with custom tags, which I'm going to talk about after this. Now, the templates are called and assigned to sections of, for example, TeamRaiser registration, and they can be conditionalized to specific classification or event types or other options like security categories or groups. So basically, within a template file, while we can set up the sequence of pages that you go through, for example, in the registration flow, which is what I'm going to show here in a second, then we can go ahead and make that customization. Now, templates are typically assigned based on the blueprint level, and we have to work at Susan G. Komen. I have to work with Blackbaud to get that assigned to the parent blueprint. I have to basically reach out to our colleague at Blackbaud and tell that person to connect the XML dictionary over to the file. So this is an example of a custom, and I'll get into this a little more later. This is a custom e-tag, which is going to pull in the event type based on the classification, and says, well, if you're event type classification 2, and that's using event type 2, and that it'll show this event type custom, and then everything else. So I could have, maybe in our case, as I'm going to show you, I'll have a race for the cure, and then anything else that's using that template will then be in the everything else section. Now, it's possible for you to have them customized, as we've done in SGK, and move the template files generally into Page Builder. But that's very risky, because I always like to say, you break it and you bought it. And so if we were to accidentally do something that's bad code, or we don't do good work, then we can break the registration flow, which can happen. And so it's really important to be super cautious around when you're making edits in template files, if you were to ever have them exposed. But say you want to do a custom registration flow, or you want to do some customization, you could collaborate with Blackbaud Professional Services, and they can make some of these custom reg flows. So now that I'm talking about this, and you've seen this in action in other places, you might go, oh, wow. Yeah, I've seen this in action. This is pretty interesting. So let's take a quick look at how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and share. This is a browser. I'm using Firefox, blah, blah. So let's take a look at this. And there we go. Okay, so wrong screen, but I will get there. There we go. Okay, so let me get to our events. Actually, I need to switch screens. I should have closed that out. Goldcast has me use in Chrome, and I wanted to showcase in Firefox. So let me flip out of that. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so this is our Houston Race for the Cure. I'm already logged in, by the way, but the login can be an interesting experience too. So let me reload there. So I'm going to click register, and I'm just going to run through the registration as an individual. So here we go to our first customization. So this is our participation types, and you can see we've got cool buttons. We've actually incorporated some of the other reg flow items onto this template section. So are you registering with a company? Do you have a discount code? And I'm not going to complete my registration. We offer a timing chip and some other options, including a gift upsell. So I'm just going to pass this over. And there you see the first interesting thing. We'll see a pop-up. And this is also in the template file. Actually, I just activated this yesterday. So this is in the reg TPT file. And so this will immediately select you into making a $30 gift. I'm going to close that. And that just takes me right to the next page. And this is our custom questions. Now, this page is within the template file, but some of the elements here are actually called from a custom JavaScript file that lives in the FTP. And so this is one of the challenges that I like to recognize, is that while we can have these templates customized, it's very important to be aware of how you're doing it. And so we've got a custom scroll here so that you have to accept our waiver, because if I didn't scroll down, this accept button wouldn't show. I have to put in some information, put 5. It's already got all my info. I'm not going to check that text box. And then I'm going on, and now this is another template customization. So we've got custom information around their view. Now, if I had actually, if I'm going to go ahead and register, this is going to take me into the actual reg flow of the modal pop-up. I'll just click on it real quickly. So this is going to show my payment options, all this stuff. This page is not very customized because we want to be really careful. So there we see the modal, and at this point, I'm going to cancel out because I don't really want to spend another $35. Then let's take a look over at our More Than Pink walk. And so the More Than Pink walk shares the same template, but they are different event types. So this registration flow, while it shares the template and has some similarities, has some differences. It also has the modal pop-up, but you'll notice this has fewer custom questions in this first part around like the timing chips, which, by the way, in the Race for the Cure, those were an upsell. So there's our modal again, trying to get an extra donation, which at SGK has proven to be very valuable. I was not a fan of this because I don't really love modals, but this brings in some significant revenue. So again, we've got our custom questions. So similarities, just some different information. Notice there's not as many questions. Pretty much, why do you walk? So at this point, that's the differences between our templates. Now, if I go over into my DIY or my other events, those are actually going to be using a non-template. So those are going to be a little different. And that's something that we have to be aware of, that, okay, not everything's going to be running in that. So let's come back over to my PowerPoint here. So custom templates, yes, you can, but maybe you shouldn't. So I have got a little screenshot here just showing the differences in the customizations. on to my next one. Out of templates, a lot of the guiding features that we have in Luminant Online and specific TeamRaiser are based on what are called template tags. So we just talked about templates, TPT files. Now we've got the custom tags, are also known as template tags. And big thanks for Blackbaud for exposing a lot of this content, because back in olden times, you really didn't have a good map on this. And a few years ago, I did a presentation on just S tags because they were so bleak. But now we've got the information is easier to access. However, not all of them are going to be useful for those of us who are developers or coders. But the cool thing about these custom tags is that they let us create a custom experience. And around that custom experience is the ability to use information from, for example, the TeamRaiser greeting page. So we could repost the location, for example. It's also possible in the TeamRaiser greeting page to have extra fields added there. And that, while is not a public-facing template, the greeting page customizations, meaning I could have extra fields added, is kind of a cool thing. So I could have, in the case of SGK, we've got about 7 or 8 custom fields that we can use to showcase information. For example, what's the t-shirt deadline? What's the weather going to be like? So we can repost this, and we use reusables that'll show these elements. But let's take a quick walkthrough of the entire set of template tags. Some of these I work with more frequently than others, and so will you. So let's just run through the list. And I've got a link to where you can get all the information about this at the end of the presentation. So our first tags are the A tags, which is like an application argument for content. And the first time I encountered one of these, I was like, what the heck is this thing? And I really had to dig into why it was there, because why did somebody not use the S409, which is a standard tag for content, but you can use an A0. I'll show you that in a second. C tags, this is your customizable component. So this is where you can grab content, like say from the administrative side of the greeting page from TeamRaiser, and repost that elsewhere. Repost that maybe in an email, or repost that on a secondary page like in your FAQs. So those can be super powerful. Next is the E tag. And I showed you an E tag a little earlier. Some people call those environment tags, but they're technically called the evaluated session component. And so you can actually, one of the big uses of them is, and they use a lot of the same numeric values as the S tags, but you can embed another tag within. And I've got some examples later. Now there's the L tag, which is a template literal tag, and most of us will never use this. This is more of a Blackbaud thing. Then we've got our message catalog entry. And so in the rare occasion you wanted to repost some information from your message catalog, you could actually use this. Now, most of us don't go that far. Like, for example, if we wanted to repost our tax ID, because we'll just put it in maybe the footer, but it's possible. The most widely used set of tags are the session components, aka S tags. And so we'll have a minute about those. Next, we've got our T tags, which is text processing. Again, very code centric, kind of like if you want to skip a line break or something like that. And then finally, the U tag, or update operation. And the U tags are good if you want to add somebody who's logged in to a group. So that would be one use of that. So let's take a quick look at an A tag. And so here it is, the A tag, the A0 tag. And the first time I saw that, I was like, what? And sure enough, that's how you can embed content. So this is actually a wrapper that I'm showing. An old wrapper that I built some time ago, but this is where I first encountered the A0 tag. So interesting little tidbit there. Also, you can see I've got an S51 for my reusable for my footer. I love reusables. Next, let's come over to the C tag, like TeamRaiser location. So there's an example of the C1 event location. And you can also come up with the C tags if you right click over onto a custom field in the greeting page and say, oh, I can see there's the name of this one. I usually use the drop downs if I have time, and I don't think I will. I was going to go into code, but we'll keep moving. Next, here's the evaluated session component. So I've got a couple examples. So this E51 reuse custom greeting content and then has another tag calling the S334 TeamRaiser ID. So what we do is we have this tag in our greeting page, and then we create custom reusables and append the TeamRaiser ID to the end. So I can have reuse, homepage content for TeamRaiser 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that'll just embed everywhere. Now, naturally, when you're going to use something like this, you might have a conditional for some fallback, so that if somebody doesn't have that, didn't build the conditional for the, the reusable for the greeting page, it has a fallback. Next here is an E48. And so the S48, that's the TeamRaiser tag. And so you can see right I've got the E48, which calls an S80 TeamRaiser ID, looking for the participant type. So participant type 1, and by the way, that actually would be like racer or walker. And then it'll display content for participant type 1 or other stuff. Next, we've got, and you have to always be conscious of always including your closing tags when you're doing conditionals and these more complex tags. Next, we've got the L tag, which is the template literal. And so this is what Blackbaud says, and I didn't find a good example. So you might use an L tag to avoid an S tag from being evaluated. So basically, you would use an L tag to just kind of cause an S tag to no longer be used. Not sure why you would do that. I usually just comment them out. And when I comment them out, you always want to remove all the brackets around the tag because it still will be called even within a comment tag in HTML. Next is our M tag, message catalog entry. And so this renders the SDP message catalog entries. So for example, depending on our locale, and so, if you're using like a multi-locale environment, like you've got English and Spanish, or if you're in Canada, you've got Canadian English and Canadian French, and maybe you've even got a US version, so you've got 3 languages. Lumen Online supports up to 6 languages, and you can really hack that if you wanted different languages from the 6 standard ones. So then in this case, because the locale is US, it's showing thanks for your support, you've been registered, blah, blah, blah. And so this uses an advocacy auto-reg login. So that's a way to get people to immediately log in. So next, so the big one, the S tag, and there's a lot of stuff around this. And I've even given you the link to all the S tag content because it's quite robust and it's really probably the most powerful tag that most of us are ever going to need to know about. But the tag all of you should know is the S1 : first _ name. Case sensitive. S tags are case sensitive. Be very cautious about that. The other one that I love to talk about is never update a copyright again. So you can use the copyright symbol and with an S9 pattern : year, and that'll always show the current year. Next, I've got a custom URL. And so this is using the S8 tag. And so by appending a custom URL string, I can show new and old content. And so this is a way that you could actually work on a page that's public facing, have conditional to show your new content with your URL string, and then keep the old content active. And that's another cool thing. Finally, I really like to hide the WYSIWYG from everybody that is in our LO instances, just on the off chance that they didn't uncheck that use WYSIWYG. So we use a 3301 with an S4 and a conditional, and it just says the code's hidden, and that's it. So that's our S tags, and a lot more information out there for you. Next is our T tags, which is this text processing operation. And I've got a couple quick examples, and I link directly to that because that one's pretty complicated. All these are linked on the last page of my template by my presentation. Finally is the U tag, and that's where we can use it for an update operation. And so the U2 adds, U3 removes, and then there's a U0 tag. Actually, the U's go from, I think it's 2 to 8. And depending on what the numeric value is, it does different things. And so usually these are all going to be useful if somebody is logged in. And so that's why the logged in experience can be really valuable. So we're almost at the end of the 30 minutes. So just a quick one. So where can you find most of this? There's the web files. I got a YouTube link from when Noah Cooper and I did a similar presentation some years ago. So I'm going to flip back over and stop sharing my screen and see if we've got any questions.
Not any questions really, but man, that you talking about S tags and how many there are now really make me feel old. I remember when I started working with Illuminate Online and TeamRaiser 25 years ago, I think we had 50 documented S tags or public documented S tags. There are obviously some background ones that we do, but yeah, now it's a big library of them between that, S tags, T tags, C tags, everything. So hopefully the people joining today will dive into those if they're not familiar with them, because it does automate a lot of stuff. It's truly the magic ingredient in the sauce of Illuminate Online and TeamRaiser. So hopefully everybody will dive in. I did have one person asking if you're going to do slides, and I think probably Bruce. If you click on people, obviously, so Rick Haynes asked for the slides and stuff, but if you click on people, you'll be able to see the people who attended. Or if, like I said, if you'll submit them to Eric, he can get them associated with the recording of the session, so people can just go to the recording.
I'll give them to Eric, and that way they'll be out there so anybody can see them later. And you get to see me
and I am
going 4 years ago.
All right, yeah, I think this survey, I'm going to try it real quick and see. Launch takes over. We'll take over attendees engagement panel. Okay, so I can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that survey over in the engagement panel. So if you would please take the survey. Bruce is probably already going to BBCon this year, but if he gets a lot of good survey results, we'll give him a free pass. We'll give Susan G. Komen their money back for his pass. So be sure you complete those.
So since I don't see any real questions, I did have a couple minutes. I was going to talk maybe about PDF receipts if somebody wanted to have a quick look at those. Otherwise, Kent, we can just dialogue. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, PDF receipts, just so everybody knows, there is a kit that I built like in 2012, which was a long time ago, obviously now, but there's a kit in the community to get you started at least. But then, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with them now as far as adding that conditional content into them.
Yeah, and just to be real brief about them. So I'm just going to show one because I've got one up. So I always do PDF receipts in Acrobat Pro. And so one of the keys here, and this is a pretty stripped down one, but so one of the things I have to do is you have to make sure that you get your PDF receipt, and I've got this already laid out. So I have to use the prepare a form option. And so when you do that, all of a sudden it's going to expose all the fields. And so this is like Kent's project is one of the first things I used when I first got into Lumina, and I started building out these PDF receipts. If the information is on your gift form, the gift information will populate the receipt as long as you've associated with the correct campaign. That works pretty much every time. And so I get this a lot where people are like, hey, it didn't work. And I'm like, does your donation form actually collect a participant name? Like, is it a TeamRaiser form, or is it a single gift form? And so they'll go, oh, right. So all these fields will fill out if you've done them correctly, and you can see I've got them all highlighted on the right side. So this is in the kit that Kent's built, and I think that about kills my time.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. All right, I guess a lot of people probably bouncing, getting ready to go to their next session.
Yep.
So thanks again for the great content. Go enjoy chopping some trees, working out some stress. I think you said you had one more tree to cut down.
I got one more. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Oh.
My contact info is on the end.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.